turn our video off. How you doing, Bruce?
I'm doing great, Courtney. How are you?
I'm getting a little thrown off. I had the video up to let us know when the countdown ended and just started.
That's okay. That's all right. By the way, I'm Bruce McClary, and that's Courtney Nagel.
Yes.
If you were wondering out there, folks.
And we're here today to talk. We have our weekly financial facts chat, and we're going to be talking a little bit about housing again this week. But how did you make it out of the storm? We had a tropical storm come up the East Coast, and it hit
Isaias moved quickly through. So here in the DC area, it was the perfect kind of tropical storm for this town because it started out with a lot of hot air blowing and then nothing came out of it. So, when you think of Washington, D.C., well, that's the perfect storm for D.C. So how did you make it through? Did everything go okay?
Yeah, it was fine. There was no damage. We lost power at the end of the storm, so we were out for a few hours, and it was a fun day with my kids playing outside, and it was nice. It wasn't super hot, and there was still a little bit of a breeze, but it was not terrible.
It was surprisingly quick. I know some others didn't come through this as cleanly as we did. There were some communities that were really hit hard. If you want to look at the worst devastation out of Isaias, you can look at some video that was posted online about Oak Island, North Carolina, where that community was just devastated. They took the full brunt. And that kind of reminds me of something that we have. It's a resource at nfcc.org. If you go to the blog page, there's a resource about having a post-disaster financial checklist.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people think about putting together hurricane emergency kits or earthquake kits on the West Coast. I used to have an earthquake kit, a lot of different natural disasters that you prepare for in advance, but often what goes under the wire and gets missed sometimes is the financial aspect of the recovery period. What documents you need to have, the contact information for your creditors, all of those things. So there's a good resource on nfcc.org that gives you tips on how to put that checklist together so that you're prepared next time to be able to start focusing on all your financial obligations and making arrangements after a disaster happens.
Yeah, and I'll be sure to add it as a link underneath these videos, but because there's still a lot of hurricane season left, like we're just getting the first waves of it, I feel like.
Yeah, we are. It's actually unusual for us to be already in the named storm list up to the letter I by the time the beginning of August rolls around. So we are way ahead of schedule. It's been a very busy year, and it's not over. It doesn't usually trail off on the East Coast until into October, really. So just brace yourselves, and it gives people plenty of time to prepare by using that resource. So again, I encourage people to visit nfcc.org or check back on Facebook and view the post because it's a good checklist to use.
All right. Well, thank you, Bruce. And we're going to pivot a little bit to the topic of using your home as an ATM. The first question that we have is about cash out refinancing. What is a cash out refinance and how does it work?
Yeah, essentially, a cash out refinance is just replacing your existing mortgage with a new home loan for an amount more than you currently owe. So if let's say your mortgage is $150,000 and you've got plenty of equity available in your home and you want to tap into that. So you go back to the lender and you get a loan that pays off your current mortgage and also gives you some cash in your pocket after you sign the documents and close the loan. And then you have a new larger amount that you have to repay. So it's, it can be a lifeline for some people who need to pay off high interest rate debt and other things, but that's essentially how it works. It's essentially just taking your existing mortgage and replacing it with a bigger loan. Okay.
Who would you say you recommend to do that if they're already struggling financially? Do you think it's a good idea for them?
It's not always a good idea, but I think one of the things that we have to address here, and this is something that Hermand and I talked about in last week's live session, is that right now, and just in general, refinancing is a very attractive option because the rates are really low. So you could actually end up saving money by refinancing. The one drawback with a cash out refinance is that the interest rates for the cash out refinance are typically higher than what you might be paying with the mortgage that you use to purchase the home. So that's one thing that people have to consider is the interest rates are a little bit higher, so the cost of the loan is going to be more. But I guess if you look at a net scenario where you're talking about overall savings, if your current first mortgage was financed at a time when interest rates were much higher, you may come out, not exactly even, but pretty close to even, and get some cash in your pocket. But a lot of it depends on your circumstances. The other thing too, if you're struggling financially, it depends on what exactly you're struggling with. Now, if you have let's say you have a lot of revolving credit card accounts that have high interest rates and you're annoyed by the high interest rates and you want to save a little bit of money, but everything else is okay, you're making payments on time, you can afford it, etc., then a cash out refinance may be a good way to go ahead and pay off that higher interest rate debt and save some money in the long term if you manage that appropriately. However, if you're past due on your credit card accounts, if you've already taken a hit with your credit score, if you're even struggling with your mortgage payments, that's a different scenario. And a loan is not going to fix your problem. That's the real issue there. And what's probably better for you in that circumstance is to reach out to a nonprofit housing counselor and a credit counselor like the ones at NFCC and get some advice about what to do. And maybe there's some programs you can plug into that don't involve borrowing more money to try to solve the problem, and actually include a little bit of financial guidance and advice that can help you address the real core issues that aren't going to be solved long term by borrowing your way out of the situation. And also, if your credit score has already taken a hit and you're already behind on those bills, when you apply for a mortgage, there's a good chance that you may not get approved for the loan, or if you do get approved for the loan, the interest rate is going to be much higher than you would probably be comfortable with. So it's going to cost you more, and a much more expensive loan is the last thing you want if you're already struggling with the mortgage you have in front of you, as well as the credit cards and other financial obligations.
Yeah. Well, we have another type of loan that you can get some money out of. It's called a reverse mortgage. What is a reverse mortgage and how does that work?
Well, if you're so a reverse mortgage is another way. It's just another tool that some individuals can use to tap into the equity in their home. So these are two options. We just talked about cash out refinance that can help put money in your pocket at times when you need it or when it might be most helpful. With a reverse mortgage, it's a little more narrow in terms of qualifications as to who can get a reverse mortgage and who can't. Much of that is tied to an age requirement. So if you're 62 or older and you want money to take care of home maintenance or medical expenses, day-to-day living, just to supplement the income that you already have, then this is a consideration for you. But that's the age requirement is key here. If you're 55, you're not going to get a reverse mortgage. If you're 45, you're not going to get a reverse mortgage. If you're 62 or if you're 65 or 70 and you own a home, then it's possible that you could get a reverse mortgage. So that's one of the main distinctions of a reverse mortgage. And then the other piece of this that's important to consider is that unlike other loans, it's not a hard and fast requirement that you repay what you borrow. So you have the option to receive the proceeds of the loan, again, based on the amount of equity you have and other factors. And then you can use those however you like without having to repay the money. So that's another thing that's appealing to seniors who might need a little bit of extra cash to supplement the income they have.
Can you talk a little bit? I know that it can be dangerous, like or risky, to kind of, I don't know, because they're older and they're taking out the equity. Where is the danger?
Well, so the main thing, and this is not what you hear in the advertisements, but the main thing is a reverse mortgage is not always right for everybody. So there are some circumstances where it may be a really good fit. And there are other circumstances where you may meet the age qualification, but it may not be the best solution for you. And in some cases, it could actually be one of the worst things you could do, depending again on a variety of factors. So it's not a product that people should just jump right into. There are a lot of considerations people have to make for themselves and to make sure that it's the right fit. A lot of in some situations, there, if you have certain goals in mind for your family or certain goals in mind for yourself in terms of ongoing home ownership and preserving home ownership of that property,
Yep.
For yourself or those that are your heirs, you definitely want to take a close look at how that's managed with a reverse mortgage. You can, with a reverse mortgage, pass your property on to your loved ones after you pass away. There's an option for them to keep the property, but the loan has to be paid off. That's the primary thing. So there are mechanisms by which that can be done, but you just have to make sure that the circumstances are in place that allow that to happen. Otherwise, it may be that the sale of the property is what pays off the loan. But it doesn't always have to be that way. So that's one thing that people have to consider. There are also fees involved in these loans. This is not free money. There's interest that accrues on the loan. There are other fees involved in closing the loan. So that, of course, is added to whatever you're borrowing, the cash amount that ends up in your pocket. So you have to be very careful to set your expectations appropriately as to how much you're going to end up with after the paperwork is signed, after all the fees are charged, and to make sure that meets your needs, because you don't want to come up short and not have enough money to meet your needs and not be able to go back to the trough and tap into your equity again. Because you've already used it up with the loan proceeds and all the fees. So that's another important thing as well. You just have to make sure it meets your needs. There's a lot of advertising right now for reverse mortgages. They have really ramped it up in the past, I'd say in the past month or two, because it is something that a lot of people are considering because these are difficult times right now.
Yeah.
But
Do you think it's a good idea right now for seniors to consider?
Yeah, I would encourage people to think very carefully about the things I just mentioned and make an informed decision rather than moving quickly. At this time, for some it may be right, but it's not right for everybody. So nonprofit housing counseling agencies do offer reverse mortgage counseling. And this is a very specialized type of counseling, and it's provided by experts that know their way around reverse mortgages and can provide you impartial advice so that you can make an informed decision about what's best for you. And that's important because you don't want to just make your decision based on what you hear in an advertisement, and you don't want to make a decision based on information provided to you by someone who is highly incentivized by you signing the loan and saying yes. A nonprofit counseling agency does not have a stake in that. Their only interest is what's best for you financially. And so they're going to provide you with impartial advice. But a lot of these advertisements are out there saying, here, get our booklet, get our DVD, learn more about reverse mortgages. You have to think about the source of that information. It's coming from the people who are going to benefit from the sale of that reverse mortgage. Right. So that might influence some of the messaging that you're getting. I'm not saying it does, but it might. And also you're getting that information from a celebrity spokesperson. That's a whole other issue right there. That person is not they're not a lender. They don't know all the details about the product, and they're pitching the product and trying to get you to take a specific action. So be very careful. That's a message we always say to seniors when it comes to managing finances and trusting information. There's good information, impartial information about reverse mortgages at ftc.gov. That's the Federal Trade Commission website. A great resource for information about reverse mortgages, and also the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB. CFPB.gov is also another resource that can give you some very good guidance in terms of what you should be cautious about and what you should pay attention to when you're considering a reverse mortgage.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Bruce. I think that is all that we were planning to cover today. But we'll be back again next week. And thanks for all your wonderful information.
All right. Thanks, Courtney. Thanks, everybody.